that I've got my process documented, the next step I'd like to perform is to perform a business assessment to look at the business case for this idea. So I can now see that I've got my status of assessment but not started. So I probably need to be something like the process owner or the department head to be able to do this, because I would need to have access to certain metrics. So in this case, I'll click on Edit. And this allows me to then see all the information that's already been entered from the default assessment, from the user that submitted the idea in the first place. And I have the option here to be able to go ahead and correct or update or modify anything. In this case, I'm happy with all of this, so I'm going to scroll down now to what we call the detailed assessment. I do need to change something here, so I can say that I've now got my task and process flows, and I've got detailed work instructions. So I can now see that my score has gone up because I've now got that documentation. So now we get into the detailed assessment. So this is where really we need to have access to some of these business metrics. The first question is, what is the primary reason to automate this process? Again, anything with an asterisk is a mandatory field. Is it cost, quality, or productivity? In many cases, it's all three. But in my case, it's more to do with quality. Are we expecting any process changes in the next 6 months? In my case, I'm not. And are there any changes to the applications? Again, no expected changes. And of course, you would choose accordingly. And again, I'd encourage you to use the comments field to add some examples of what changes are expected in this case. What's the average number of working days per year? Well, in this organization, it's 220. And we can default these values as well. We have a 7.5-hour working day. Now imagine in my environment, we use this demonstration for different organizations in different geographies. So we've left our currency at the default of dollars. But for the purposes of this, for a UK audience, let's imagine this currency symbol was pounds. In this case, the person doing this job has a fully loaded cost of £35,000 per year. Now we need to make sure that when we're doing the business case, we're thinking about the true cost of employing somebody. So it's a gross salary plus things like pension contributions, employers' national insurance contributions, maybe some additional benefits that you may offer to your employees. So again, all those need to be factored in. Next, what are some of the process volumes? So how frequently are we doing this? In my case, we do it daily. And for the average volumes, are we applying that per company or per employee? Now for me, we're looking at it for the organization as a whole. And we do about 1,000 of these per day. And we have 5 people doing this work. Now, we know from task capture, when we add in the Excel pieces, that it takes about a minute to do this each transaction. So I can now see that the manual effort associated with doing this process is 3,500 hours per year. Now the error rate is high. Humans are about 97% accurate. That means we're 3% inaccurate. But in this case, we've found that the error rate is 5%. And when a mistake is made, it takes about 15 minutes to fix that. So we're spending over 2,700 hours fixing mistakes. That's not far off what we're spending just entering the data in the first place. Now, because this is a financial process, we audit. We audit 5% of everything that we do. And we found that the auditing, because audits sometimes find mistakes, on average it takes about 15 minutes. So now that process that was taking us 3,500 hours per year is really taking us just over 9,000 and requires 5.5 full-time equivalents. So in this case, we're probably paying people overtime. Now in this particular organisation, what we're doing is we're bringing in casual labour. So we're bringing in contractors to do some of the work in other parts of finance. What we'd love to do is to be able to free this team up to do higher value activities in other parts of the department, and we can then reduce our reliance on casual labour and contract labour. We can see that the cost of performing this process manually today is about £195,000. So that's the business benefit we could get back if we were to automate all of this process. So let's start to continue stepping through this. The process ways of working. Do we have any process peaks? Now, many finance processes and other processes within businesses will have seasonal peaks or period-based peaks, but in my case, there are none. We have roughly an average of 1,000 per day throughout the year. The average number of steps? Well, we know from task capture there are less than 20 steps. So you would answer accordingly. So get some idea from your process maps or from talking to the end users within the business to understand how many steps. And a step really is, what buttons am I clicking? What fields am I typing into? What screens am I navigating between? All of those types of things. A number of ways to complete this process. In my case, the process is completed the same way every time. Now, what's happening is behind the scenes, again, each of these questions has a score and a weighting associated with it, and it's also helping to derive additional scores within the tool. Next, my data is 100% digital. None of it is scanned. Scanning can be things like receiving invoices in the post, scanning those in, and then need to be able to digitize the information from those in order to be able to process them. And my data, in my case, is highly structured. What applications am I using? Well, in my case, I'm using Excel and expenses, and I'm also using Notepad, but I don't think that's in my list, so let's go ahead and add that. So now I can start to see a graph here that shows my detailed assessment from the additional information that I've been provided. So I can see here on the ease of implementation axis, and in the right-hand corner, and then the y-axis, the automation potential, I can see them in the top. So this is really putting this in the top right-hand corner. So this is what we would probably refer to as a low-hanging fruit. The processes that are easy to implement with a high automation potential, and in this case, with a reasonably compelling business case. And then we can start to put in expected benefits. I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this demonstration, but what I'd encourage you to do is put in here what benefits you expect to derive from this automation, and revisit it once the automation's gone live for what are the actual benefits that have been realized. And similarly with the challenges. What challenges were you expecting, and what challenges did you encounter? And also, what lessons did you learn? We can also attach media. So here I can see I've got my process map, but I can also do things like upload screen recordings of a process. And they become very useful assets when we're trying to understand how this process is done manually today. And also the automation developer can use that as a reference. What exactly is the user clicking? How are they navigating, and so on. We can also specify whether this is similar to another automation, and then we can link them together. In this case, I'm going to leave those as they are and go ahead and save my assessment. Let's go ahead and save the changes. So it's now submitting that, and we'll start to see some additional changes now in Automation Hub, particularly in an area called the Cost Benefit Analysis tab. So if I go into the cost benefit analysis, I can now see that my pre-automation costs are about £195,000. The maintenance of a simple process like this will probably be around about £2,000 a year. So I've got a net benefit to the business if I can essentially free up people to do other things of around about £192,000. And of course, how we choose to realise those benefits will change from organisation to organisation. But in my experience, most organisations have more work than they have resources for. And so this frees people up to do higher value activities and in many cases to focus on business improvement rather than business as usual. Now, Automation Hub can help us with far more than this. This is as far as I'm going to take this demonstration today. But we can also do things like plan out the project, plan out the project costs, plan out the software costs. So when we're looking at the cost benefit analysis, as we continue to go through the automation lifecycle, we can also start to compare then what is the business benefit versus the cost. And then we can make a value-based decision as to whether we do go ahead and automate that idea.